This Committee on Appropriations, Public Debt, Legal Affairs, Retirement, Public Parks, Recreation, Historic Preservation, and Land will not come to order. We are having a roundtable. To discuss the need to address Bill 385, an act to appropriate funds to the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs to fulfill local matching funding requirement for the 3 separate veteran cemetery grants. I have with me the Chairman of Veterans Affairs, Senator Frank Aguon, the former Chairman of Veterans Affairs, Senator Tom Mata, and Senator Tommy Morrison. We have several people who have signed up to contribute to this discussion. Benjamin Palacios, John and Pinko, Senator Bloss, Tony Bloss, and John Pangalini. I will allow you to lead off and kind of lead it, take this roundtable to wherever it needs to get to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Speaker, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Vice Speaker, Bill number 385 is a measure that would allocate $260,000 as the local matching component for 3 separate grants that will be submitted very shortly by the Guam Veterans Affairs Office. And just for the purposes of those who are listening into today's discussion, $150,000 of that would be for the expansion of 300 pre-placed crypts to improve public restrooms and other facilities at the existing cemetery. $80,000 is to prevent further erosion of the cemetery and its banks along the Aguon River overflow. And then $30,000 is to clean, align, replace the tilting headstones and redo the surface, the turf, raise sunken graves, and relocate the Japanese machine gun nest. So these are all aspects of the allocation of the resources that are being requested by the Guam Veterans Affairs Office. And I would like to not only recognize yourself, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Tom Mata and Senator Morrison, but this is a measure that is time sensitive, and I appreciate you, Mr. Chairman, having the roundtable discussion this afternoon, albeit it's not a public hearing, but it is an opportunity for us to be able to publicly discuss the contents of Bill number 385. So if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, if we can yield to the Executive Director, Judge Pinko of the Guam Veterans Affairs Office. Please identify yourself for the record.
And thank you, Senator Cruz, for giving us the opportunity to testify. Senator Aguon, Senator Ada, and Senator Morrison. Let's speak in simple terms here. I prepared a speech which I will read later on, but the thing is that we need this money for grants, and the grants are to finish up the cemetery, the Guam Veterans Cemetery, and also to take care of 2 cemeteries, or rather 1 cemetery that has turned into somewhat of an eyesore. As you know, these are hard times also for contractors, so local contractors on Guam, and they've been wanting this work of any kind, because when the Navy lets out its contracts, it's usually for big ones, and it's an off-island firm that usually does them, and they sub out to the contractor, but as you go down the tiers, there's less meat to be shared. So the contractors, local contractors, welcome such an opportunity to bid on this project. The second thing is that if we don't have this grant, or rather if we don't have this matching funds, there is no grant. It's Office of Veterans Cemetery Grant Service requirement that there has to be a matching fund, although that's a bit misnomer, because they want to see the seriousness with which we take these kinds of grants. And the grant here is simple and very basic. It's a 10%, but we get it all back. Now, if you remember, Senator Aguon, when I first came to you with this, I said there's going to be a time crunch here because all papers are due, rather the grant money itself. the matching funds, rather, are due in Washington. For us, the paperwork that Washington requires of the matching funds is that we have a bill passed and it's signed into law, and somebody from the governor's office, the governor or the lieutenant governor, certifies that these funds are available for that particular purpose. And then we get active consideration for the bill. Now, we have gone to great lengths to lobby for the grants. In fact, we wouldn't have had the 3 grants broken down into the way they are, but for Washington's guidance. We have established a good track record, if I may say so. We have established the rapport and the trust with them, and so even though they're looking at us very closely, we're measuring up to their standards. And so without further ado, I'd like to read my testimony to you. Bill 385-32 is quite important for a variety of reasons. First, it is denoted as being matching funds, for it is that. But what is different is that as part of a grant from the National Cemetery Grant Service of the Department of Veterans Affairs, it is returned to us at the end of the contract. All of it is 100% returned to us. There are no strings attached, no in-kind matching of any type. Second, it enables us to compete and get free federal money. Without the matching funds, we cannot receive a grant. It is a prerequisite for consideration for the grant. Third, as off-island money, it in turn generates about 100 jobs for contractor and subcontractor personnel who all pay taxes. In addition, the companies that are contractors and their subcontractors also pay taxes to the government of Guam. They purchase the materials with which they perform the contract locally. Thus, local vendors get a share of the grant from the contractors, and they too pay taxes to the local government. As you can see, the grant funds have a multiplier effect. Fourth, the funds will be used to upgrade and beautify the East Aguon Cemetery, as well as the main Guam Veteran Cemetery. After years of neglect, we can help make it a pleasing oasis that visitors will hopefully find an attractive spot to visit. With much history behind it, dating from the Spanish-American War to the Korean War, it is a wonderful story to tell which highlights the patriotism of our people through hard times. And it would cure an ice roar of the Aguon River, eroding the cemetery into the Philippine Sea. Fifth, it would complete the work at the Guam Veteran Cemetery with the addition of a much-needed maintenance shop where we could store our equipment without fear of it being stolen. And it would complete the addition of the underground crypts so that this cemetery can accommodate our veterans for a good 20 years from now. We will have 850 underground crypts built with the grant we now have. This grant will enable us to make up to 1,000, which is what we originally envisioned. Finally, it's the intent to develop both the East Aguon Cemetery and the Guam Veterans Cemetery into tourist attractions. When I'm in Hawaii, I often looked at Punchbowl Cemetery, where busloads of tourists come to visit and to take pictures. And I said, why can't our cemeteries be like that? Visitors are reminded that wars result in tragic deaths and should be continuously averted. Also, it would incorporate the beach area at East Aguon as part of its charm. This is a win-win situation for our island. And so I ask for your support of this bill.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Pico. Senator Tony?
I would like to participate and support the bill 385.
J-
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for your presence today, Senator Blas and Mr. Pangilinan.
Yeah.
Just a couple of quick highlights before I open the floor to actually the chairman and the other senators here. Judge Mpinko, you did mention and highlight the timeliness of this measure. Now, can you identify the exact timeline, like for example, by the 13th, by the 14th, it has to be transmitted?
By the 14th, we have to transfer the papers.
The mic.
Thank you, Senator. By the 14th, they have to physically have the papers in their hands in Washington. So I allow 1 day for that to happen if we can get it out of here by courier service. And that is the drop dead date because what happens is that these grants is from all over the nation, and they collate them and then they rank order them. But they do not award until they see that you've got all your papers in order. And one of the things that Veterans Cemetery Grant Service has suffered in the past, mainly from the cemeteries in Hawaii, is that they ask for the grant and they don't have the matching funds with which to do the grant. So they made it an ironclad rule, from what has been told to me, that they must have the matching funds or evidence of the matching funds in their hands.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to highlight that if you notice the date of the introduction of the legislation, it was on the 25th of July. That was when, as chair, we did receive direct communication from Judge Mpinku's office that the importance of not only identifying the matching requirement, but also alerting us to the 13th as a timeline that we need to try to meet if in fact they're going to pursue this grant. So I just wanted to make sure that that got on the record and everyone would understand that not only is this 100% reimbursed or covered by the grant itself and it would come back to the community, but just as importantly the 13th. And Judge Mpinko, I'm very appreciative to the chairman for having this roundtable discussion and giving the community an opportunity to be able to view and to participate in some of this discussion. And that's solely so that, in fact, should this be placed, and I have every intention of asking the chairman to place it and the senators to place it on the agenda so that hopefully we can get you that signed document by the date that you have specified. So I would like to just say that for the record and hopefully get the concurrence and the support of my colleagues, but at least this gives the public the opportunity to be able to preview the measure and why we're proceeding as quickly as possible. Mr. Chairman. Senator Ada.
Thank you. I just so that more so to put it on the record, we had some previous discussion here, so I just wanted to place on the record then that this $260,000 matching fund will actually come back to Gov Guam. So it's really kind of like whatever Gov Guam puts out, this $260,000 will come back. With this matching grant, with this matching funds, how much would Gov Guam be able to access then in federal funds?
With $260,000 in matching funds, Gov Guam stands to get a grant of $2,600,000.
Okay. And what is the relevance of that East Agana cemetery? We don't bury there anymore. Yeah. So maybe if you can just explain that.
Yes. There's 300 graves there, Senator, and they're in various states of disrepair. Some have sunk into the ground and some are tilting. But of the 300, approximately, there are some, most of it is veterans, some of it is dependents of veterans, and some of it are German sailors. The German sailors number about a dozen or so buried there. You can tell by the distinctive crosses that they bear, emblems on their headstones, the idea of rehabilitating the cemetery first took root with the congressional delegation visit of the chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee. And we were passing by on the bus tour, and he said, "Stop the bus. What is that?" And I had to explain it was under our jurisdiction. And he said, "Shouldn't it be fenced in?" And I explained that it normally is fenced in, but we haven't the funds to rehabilitate it.
Because of you got some World War I, II?
Yes, both.
Is that of any historical significance? I mean,
yes.
Okay.
It's been rich in history. I've talked to Tony Ramirez, a local historian, and he says that most of our history is most of the historical events, celebrations like veterans, they used to be there, and they're in it are widows of the veterans from the prior wars, and in it are also the graves of some representatives from the Marine 1st Terrier Division, like Scambalori. So it has got a lot of history behind it. And it will make a good tourism spot because right next to it is a beachfront property that is cared for by Parks and Recs occasionally. Padre Palomo, yes, Padre Palomo Park. And our intent is we hope to put a fence that will enclose the cemetery, but also we will take care of the Padre Palomo Park as well.
Okay. And finally, my final question is, what's your experience with the reimbursement of the matching funds, at least from the previous grant that we had?
The previous grant, we didn't have any difficulties, but there was some time spent in it, simply because of communications with Washington. We had to take our contractors. At first, it was the architects and engineers that were first design it. That's the first step in the process, and it's contracted out. So the procurement process took some time, and after that, when they submitted their request for reimbursement, we in turn would take the papers, study it, and then make our recommendations to Washington and forward it to Washington. Washington would then look at the figures, and then they'll either say yay or nay. When they do say yay, then they load up our accounts here in Guam, and then we can reimburse the contractor, which is usually the architect.
Okay. All right, so a lot of it is really kind of driven mostly by how quickly the design is
Yes.
done and us
Yes.
submitting the paperwork.
And each phase of the design, like the 15%, the 25%, the 30%, and the 45%, 65%, and 75%, all the way up to the 100%, is approved and critiqued by the National Cemetery Service.
Okay. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I take it the scope of services or here outlined in the bill is consistent with the grant?
The scope of services there that's outlined in the bill is consistent with our needs, and also based on guidance that the folks in Washington have told me would be appropriate for our cemeteries.
Okay. I was looking at the item number 2 on the 80,000 to prevent further erosion, and when you're saying the Ganya overflow, you're talking about the center piece that divides Padre Palomo and
Yes.
is there erosion from the beach side?
No.
So this is only to cover that.
It's going out towards the seaside.
Mhm.
Whenever the Ganya River overflows, like with heavy rains, it'll wash out, and the problem is that is eroding the banks. There used to be some kind of reinforcing, cement reinforcing structure there, but over the years it has been neglected and it has not been maintained, so it has broken up into pieces, and now it's in some places you can still see part of the reinforcement. In other places it's non-existent, so it's a free-for-all for the water.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just one follow-up question, and this is addressed to Senator Blas. Like I said a little earlier, thank you very much for your presence here.
Sure.
And I take it by virtue of your presence, you're reinforcing support for this proposal. Now, you're looking at $260,000 originating from fiscal year 2014 funds. Are there
And we are very
funds?
supportive of this bill, Senator Aguon.
are there funds sufficient to
Yes,
finance
we
this?
can work within our resources here, and the funds will be able to assist you and to make this Bill 385 happen.
Okay.
To help our veterans and all, and I know the governors are very committed to support the veterans, and we're here to reiterate the importance of.
Okay, I just needed that clarification because it's 260,000 that is originating, the way the legislation reads,
2014.
from fiscal year 14. So you're saying that there are sufficient revenues to cover this requirement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Also,
sir.
there is a reimbursement component in the last grant that happened.
Yeah.
I know that Senator Pangilinan, in communication with Senator Pangalinan's office at the time on that grant, they were able to appropriate the funds and then de-appropriate when the reimbursement happens. It goes back to the general fund.
That was what I was going to ask.
Yes.
This 265 will never leave Guam.
Correct.
Really?
It's here.
It'll It's just a commitment on our part that we will, that we are committed to $265,000 worth, but actually, we don't need to send this to Washington. Washington doesn't need to receive this in order to be able to qualify for the grant. All we need to do is certified copy of the law
Yes.
that it's been passed.
But the last time we did this, the money, the matching funds, like is in this bill, was used to finance the architect and engineering plans for the construction. And then when that contract was finished, then we got the reimbursement.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that if we can get this without, I mean, the way that this is written, if it was passed just the way that it is, the governor will sign it, and he'll be able to certify that
Yes.
we're committed to $265,000 worth from here, whether or not we actually have the cash or not.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay?
Yes.
And when it's finished and the 265 is not sent off island, where does the $265,000 go? Does that stay within your department?
No, sir.
Or will we be able to
No,
de-appropriate?
the former Senator Ben Pangilinan, what he did was he had a de-appropriation bill passed for that amount, and for the amounts that were left over from the matching funds originally, because we didn't use all that we had asked for. And that went, I don't know where, but it went back to the
General fund.
general fund.
Back to the general fund.
John?
Yes, my name is John Pangilinan. If the bill is passed and the appropriation is set forth, it'll be recorded with DOA. And then the appropriate expenditures would be recorded if there are expenditures, and that'll be the basis for the reimbursement.
So there'll be some upfront costs. You'll front awaiting the money, but it'll always be, the money will always be here.
Yes.
All right, fine. I have nothing further. Anybody? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And, Your Honor, thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you.
Senator, thank you for coming, John.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, okay, take it.